Hello and welcome to the Badjr. In a previous video, we added a device to a site and then allowed monitoring of that device so we can pick up whether the device is online or offline on the alert board. Today, we will be adding a device to a site and then adding a service to that device so that we can access it either via Unity or publicly using a port forward. Let's get started. Firstly, we want to go to that site. In this case, we've got James Carr's Cape Town. We go to the dashboard of that site. And if we go to devices and on-site devices, we will see there are no devices added. So what we're going to do is we're going to scan the network and we're going to scan the LAN range. And we'll wait for that to run through. All right, now you'll see that device has been picked up on the network and we will click Add On-Site Device. In this case, it's just a laptop that I have connected to that Badjr. In most cases, you'll be adding a server or a NAS or any kind of device that needs to be accessed remotely. And then if you are adding a server, you will add it as a Windows server. In this case, it's just a Windows laptop. The category or type isn't relevant. It just separates it inside your device's screen. So we will choose Windows laptop. I'm getting lost. There we go. It's connected via cable. We're going to tag it as a critical device. For example, if this was a server, we would want it as a critical device. We want it active. We're not going to select monitoring. And we save. Then, if I wanted to access this device remotely, I would go to Add a Service. For example purposes, I am going to add an RDP service. I can name it anything I want, but the type is going to be an RDP service. If you wanted a web server, for instance, you would add it as HTTPS. If it was a Linux machine which you needed to access via SSH, I would add an SSH port. But for this example, we're going to use RDP. You'll see here the internal port that it's going to open is 3389, the default RDP port. I can save this. And now you'll see that there is a link to RDP into Dan's laptop via Unity. If I click on that, that will download an RDP shortcut. If I open the file, I'll be able to connect to that machine. And there we go. I can RDP into that device. Now, this is only accessible via Unity as it is currently. If I edit this service and I choose the option to make it a public service, this is what opens that port to the internet. So if your Badjr is dialing a PPPoE account, then there wouldn't be anything further you need to do. But if your Badjr is routing out via another ISP's router, you would need to forward whatever ports you want to port forward to this device would need to be forwarded through to the Badjr from the ISP's router first. In this case, I want to open this RDP port publicly. It's not a recommended thing to open RDP publicly, but usually if a client has an on-site web server, you would want to port forward that web service into the network to that device. But in this case, I will make it public. And I can make the public internet port anything I want. It doesn't have to be the default port for the service. And I can make it 4300, for example. And then I will click Save. That is now making that port public. But what you would need to do is make sure that that port is forwarded through to the Badjr. The endpoint of that port needs to be the Badjr so it can forward it on to its own internal device. And that is adding a public service to a device. Thank you very much.